Let's talk about Madara Uchiha, an icon in the world of anime, immediately recognizable and immensely popular. But why? Today I want to answer the question of what makes Madara such a great villain, why he's still spoken about nearly 8 years after he was defeated, and perhaps whether or not he's the greatest villain of the series and all of shonen anime. To do this, we're going to need some guidelines to better focus our efforts in judging and analyzing this complex character. So for clarity, I've broken these criteria down into a few categories. Plot. Why Madara matters to the story and how he influences it. Presence. When this character enters the scene, what do we feel and what factors influence that feeling? This will also incorporate elements of his personality and philosophy. And finally, hype. Has he created or contributed to a moment that has your jaw dropped and stunned you in your seat? Oh, you know he does, and I cannot wait to talk about it. So let's begin. We'll start with presence. Madara's a stunning character. His entire figure is cloaked in his iconic signature mane of flowing dark hair, and he is almost always seen in some form of battle garb, consisting of a very archaic armor that proves to show us as viewers two very interesting things about his character. One being that there's no life outside of battle for him. He breathes for the thrill of the fight. To bleed on the battlefield is what he craves most in the world. And this dark, battle-hungry demeanor feeds into his design as a character as a whole, informing our opinion of what kind of person he truly is, a warrior. Secondly, his design proves to remove him from the modern ideals and aesthetics, making him feel almost alien and out of place in this modern shinobi world. Take a look at Naruto's outfit in Shippuden. Basically, he's just wearing a zip-up turtleneck and some pants. There's no craftsmanship or consideration for how well it would protect him in battle, and prove to make him a more proficient combatant. These are just clothes, and this design philosophy carries through to every single character in the modern era. But Madara is different. He's stuck in time, in a perpetual state of warfare where armor is normalized and worn to signify one's place as a warrior, and you can see how proudly Madara stands as his personified image of power. This all helps to create a signature image that, when contextually seen through his personality, motives, and other factors we'll discuss further in this video, proves to manifest as a character that completely dominates the screen when he's on it. Then there's reverence, which in Madara's case is a word synonymous with power and infamy. Before Madara was resurrected, Obito took on his name, introducing himself as Madara Uchiha. And it's easy to see why he would do that when you look at the terrified reactions of the people who know the name and what it stands for. There's power in a name. There's been no better interpretation of this concept in media than in the movie series John Wick, the Baba Yaga, the boogeyman. The way John Wick is characterized is the exact same way that Madara is. They treat even his name as a weapon at his disposal, creating a legendary image that strikes fear into even the most vile criminals in that world. They use his name to allude to a history of frightening precision and calculated destruction. He is not someone you want to cross paths with because that encounter will likely mean your demise. I mean, just take a look at these two scenes, and even without context, you can feel the gravity of the name being spoken as it forces its way onto the center of the stage.
That fucking nobody is John Wick.
Whoa! The true power of the Sharingan that belongs to me, Madara Uchiha! Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
Of course it's for dramatic effect, but lightning literally strikes at the sound of his name. And that's the power it carries. He's a ghost, a monster that until Obito resurrected, people slept better thinking he had perished long ago. And that kind of characterization is so vital in the process of creating a true antagonist. And the Naruto series handled it beautifully in Madara's case. Quickly then, let's discuss his personality and philosophy. He of course is a power-mad warmonger hell-bent on subjugating the entire human race because he arrogantly decided that his worldview was the best path towards peace, regardless of whether it was paved by enslaving every single person on the planet with an alien god tree and putting them into an eternal dream. Yeah, that's who this guy is, and I think it's absolutely great. Why? Because villains don't have to be completely rational. In fact, most great villains are truly broken people. Their psyches shattered in some irreparable way that has created the conditions for their descent into madness. For Madara, it was the perpetual slaughter of his clanmates and, more personally, his own brother. Madara isn't a normal person and shouldn't be judged under those standards. He's a man that grew up in a world that reeked of blood and tragedy. Of course, we can't possibly understand the incredible weight of responsibility that he feels, nor can we ever sympathize with the depths of his losses. So of course we can't connect our own worldview and means to accomplish it to his own. His goals are alien to us, and his means of achieving them are even more so. Villains aren't meant to be sympathizable or completely understood. Their enigmatic presence in a narrative should throw a wrench into our understanding of normality, and the best ones shake it to its absolute core. Next, let's talk about hype. This is of course a little vague, so I'll narrow it down to the singular moment in anime history that Madara captivated the entire world. Obviously, we're talking about the meteor. Or should I say, meteors. I mean, just writing that sentence sent chills down my arms. Let's just sit and watch it for a second.
Do not misunderstand it. This is not power of your creation!
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
I feel like I can't even add anything to this scene that wouldn't completely ruin how immensely awesomely it stands as a perfect representation of who and what Madara is. But I do need to hit that 8-minute minimum, so let's do it anyway. First off, he pulled a meteor out of orbit. Can we even begin to comprehend what a ridiculous flex that is? I mean, even to pull one celestial body out of space would be ludicrous, but he does it twice. The scale of this feat is unimaginable and completely blew apart any power scaling, lore building, or comparison threads on Reddit that were available at the time, and crushed them under the force of sheer awesomeness, and, well, 2 meteors. And solely because this is a Madara analysis and not me just glazing him for several minutes, I want to discuss what this scene means. Madara is a cold, calculating figure that will do anything necessary to win the day over and triumph over his enemy. So if you had an immortal body and nigh infinite power, what would you do to quickly slaughter an army? Of course you'd drop a meteor. And what's interesting about him is that he's completely unfazed by the idea of being absolutely obliterated by the force of this attack. And instead of retreating, he chooses to stay and watch to see the allied shinobi forces squirm in agonizing terror of their assured deaths. Of course, through this, you'd surmise that Madara is a sadistic villain, thrilled by causing mayhem and destruction, but this couldn't be further from the truth. This attack means a few things that we can once again read into. First, this is perhaps the most merciful way he could have chosen to end the lives of his opposition, quickly dispatching them in a way that they could not possibly survive to suffer. If he wanted to, he could have summoned hordes of clones and roasted them alive with fire ninjutsu, or just cut them down one by one in agonizing terror. But this way, they would all perish together under his dominating might. And I'm not saying he's virtuous for this or anything like that, but I think it means more than him just wanting to flex his power, which of course he was doing. Secondly, if you look at how Madara reacts to Onoki, I think it's safe to assume he was testing the battlefield in a genuine way. He wanted to see how the shinobi world had grown, and whether or not he still stood so far above the rest that Hashirama was the only real and true opposition he ever had. There's an honor in how Madara carries himself, recognizing the strong and capable, but even through this, he offers no mercy. He has a job to do, and no matter the cost, it will be done. And this is a true glimpse of his character and what he values in the world. Lastly, we have to talk about his significance to the plot. Before the Black Zetsu retcon, Madara acted as the cogs and gears that pushed the Naruto plot along, orchestrating every single disaster that occurred both during his lifetime and well after it. His plans were an interconnected web of manipulation, terror, and were of such magnitude that they shaped a world in a way that could not be ignored. Moving backwards a bit, Zabuza was the first real villain we saw in the Naruto series, and contextually, he proved to be a significant threat that needed to be stopped. But the threat that Madara demonstrated was unequivocally the greatest concern that the world could possibly face, and the immense weight of the consequences of his success would forever change it. This is an extremely important factor when making a villain, how much of a threat they are. What are the consequences of failure for the heroes if they are unsuccessful in stopping him? And I think Madara captures this idea perfectly. He's not only a mastermind capable of orchestrating decade-long plans that change the lives for a countless many, a shadowy figure in the background so to speak, but he's also one of the most powerful direct threats to the world on a planetary scale. It's not just a village or a clan that's at risk if he succeeds, it's the entire human race that falls. That carries a significant weight to it that cannot be ignored. To me, it's these factors that push Madara into the upper echelons of greatness. How we view and interpret his actions, design, and philosophy. And despite how he was defeated, generally considered a huge stumble and stain on the otherwise great Naruto series, there's no doubt in my mind that Madara made such an impact on the series and the greater anime culture that it is genuinely difficult to discuss any ranking of villains without at least mentioning his name. And to me, that makes him the perfect Naruto villain. Thanks for watching. Do the YouTube stuff if you could. My landlord only accepts YouTube analytics as payment. Peace.